July 2021, and I've headed west along Hadrian's Wall to Carlisle in search of more Romans and a bus ride across a border. There was already a settlement in what is today Carlisle when the Romans arrived and used it as a base to head beyond the Solway. But by 122, Hadrian had drawn the boundary of the empire, and the wall that bears his name ran just to the north of the city. By the time of the Norman invasion, Carlisle was part of Scotland, so wasn't recorded in the Domesday Book. But that changed in 1092, when William II invaded and brought Carlisle into England. Construction began on a castle straight away, and 30 years later, work started on the cathedral. Over the centuries, religious communities built up around the cathedral, with a Dominican and Franciscan friary both being founded near the building. But, as ever in English history, the presence of Henry VIII casts a long shadow over the religious buildings of the country. The monasteries were closed in 1536. The cathedral was to suffer further indignity during the English Civil War, where a portion of the nave was demolished by the Scottish Presbyterian Army in order to use the stone to reinforce the castle. It wasn't until the mid-19th century that the cathedral was restored, but even then the building is left stunted from the missing end of the nave. Located in the crypt of the cathedral is a small treasury that houses some of the cathedral's historic artefacts, including some of the original wooden bosses from the ceiling. A short distance from the cathedral, and still containing some of the stones stolen from it, is the castle. Over 900 years old, the castle's been at the centre of wars and invasions, being the last English fortress to undergoing a siege during the Jacobite Rising of 1745 to 1746. For a building so historic, it's interesting to note that it wasn't listed by English Heritage as a scheduled ancient monument until 1996. And whilst it's open to the public to explore, it still has a connection to the British Army, housing the Duke of Lancaster's regiment. A few miles to the west, Hadrian's Wall meets the sea at Bowness-on-Solway, but the fortifications didn't end there. With the wide Solway Firth providing quick access for an attacking army, the fortifications turned south and headed down the coast, with a major fort at Loana, modern-day Maryport. Today, the site of the fort houses the Senhouse Roman Museum, dedicated to many of the religious finds from along the wall, as well as telling the story of the wall beyond the wall. From the viewing tower outside, you can get a good idea of the layout of Alawana Fort from the shapes in the turf below. And in the distance, look up towards one of the mile fortlets that continue the fortifications up and down the coast. South down the coast and you reach Whitehaven. Once an important port for the export of coal, the town's harbour also played a role in an altogether filthier business, that of the slave trade of the American colonies. Between 1750 and 1772, the port was the second busiest after London. The nearby Rum Story Museum tells the history of the town and the role it played in the shameful trade. From the mid-19th century onwards, the larger ports of Bristol and Liverpool took over its trade, and the port and town went into a slow decline. Hastened by the closure of the coal mines, the port eventually closed in 1992. However, prosperity had already returned to the town before then, with the building of Windscale nuclear power plant, later renamed Sellafield after a near meltdown. Highly skilled technical jobs helped to bring more money into the town. By the turn of the millennium, the former port had been turned into a marina, and a new museum for the area had been built in the landmark Beacon building. The museum focuses on the history, geography and art of the region, as well as a glowingly positive exhibition on the wonders of nuclear power, sponsored by Sellafield. "5 miles to the south of Whitehaven is Egremont. A fort was established on the high ground here by the Danes towards the end of the first millennium, with the present castle being built at the start of the 12th century. In 1322, Robert Bruce attacked the town, slaughtering many of the inhabitants, and over the next 100 years only an uneasy peace followed, during which time the now empty castle slowly fell into the ruinous state that it's in today. The town claims to hold one of the oldest fairs in the world, the Crab Fair, which dates back to 1267, after Henry III granted the town a charter for a market. Today, the Crab Fair is also home to the World Gurning Championships. North from Carlisle, across the Solway and into Scotland, and you reach the town of Dumfries. Dumfries has a history that stretches back to at least the Roman era, but the town is dominated by one man, Robert Burns. Whilst Alloway and Ayrshire can claim all the birthrights for Burns, it was in Dumfries that the man spent his final years, before his death aged just 37. The Burns Centre, housed in an old mill building by the River Nith, tells the story of a man and his time in the town. And across the Nith, in the grounds of St Michael's Churchyard, is his mausoleum. Just a few hundred feet away from the house he lived in until his death. Back over the river and high on the hill overlooking the town is Dumfries Museum, which tells more of the history of the town, including, at the time of visiting, a timely exhibition on plagues through the ages, from bubonic to COVID. A trip to Cumbria wouldn't be complete without at least a passing visit to the Lake District, and whilst Carlisle isn't actually in the lakes, it's easy to get there by public transport. The first leg of my journey took me from Carlisle to Penrith and on past Ullswater, before climbing up through the Kirkstone Pass, the highest pass in the Lake District you can drive up, before descending back down to Windermere, and then on past Grasmere and Firlmere to Keswick. Leg 2 was all on one bus, the Honister Rambler, or the number 77A if you're actually looking for the bus. Heading out from Keswick, it climbs up the Winlater Pass before descending back down into Lawton. The bus then passes Crummock Water, before stopping in the town of Buttermere and passing the lake of the same name. It then climbs the spectacular Honister Pass, before descending back down into the villages of Seatoller, Borrowdale and Grange. The route continues past high above Derwent Water before descending back down into Keswick. The final leg departs Keswick and heads north through the last part of the Lake District and past Bassenthwaite, before leaving the mountains of the Lake District to return to the rolling hills of Cumbria and back to Carlisle. Carlisle is located on the West Coast Main Line with regular trains to Edinburgh, Glasgow, Newcastle, Manchester, Liverpool, Birmingham and London.